Great. Think my voice is audible as well? Thank
It
you.
is.
Loud and clear.
Sure.
Yes.
So let's start the day, guys. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone from all parts of the world who have registered for the great webinar happening today. Hope you and your family are doing safe in the COVID times. Our best wishes are with all of you. Now, to begin with, let me introduce myself and the company to you. My name is Nitin Naveen, and I'll be your host for the day. I'm working as Vice President Innovation and Strategy at AI CoreSpot. Further, I've been joined by my colleague Arvind and Naveen, who will also assist me in keeping the event lively and resolving technical glitches if it comes in between. So, thanks a lot to them for putting in hard work and making this one a huge success. We'll try to provide a seamless experience to all of you so that you can gain maximum output out of the same. Let me provide a brief background to all of you about AI CoreSpot. We started last year, so you can say we are in the journey from last couple of years around this time. Backed up by our partner who is InfoVision, knowledge and innovation partner, and Digit7 who is our technology partner. The focus is to provide all of you a deep dive in all the sectors wherever technology is there. And every month we have a separate theme. We are gaining momentum month on month. Our aim is to be number one AI driven community all over the world so that like minded people like you can be a part of the same in growing, supporting, and making it a success. Our mission is to serve as a hub for information regarding Industry 4.0 technologies, which includes a lot of one like AI, ML, deep learning, digital twin, robotics, blockchain, AR, VR, IoT, 5G, drone, analytics, edge computing, cloud, edge AI, and so on. We'll enrich the content through digital content, videos, blogs, newsletters, and podcasts to shed light on the ever evolving industry. The focus is to do industry backed webinars and the hybrid events. The knowledge base will be made from reliable data through subject matter experts, industry leaders, thought leaders, and our partners, which is InfoVision and Digit7. Today, we are having a lovely and unique webinar around the great theme, which covers how technology is transforming the financial sector. So, if you want to know the impact of technology covering the tech innovation, platform modernization, tech productivity, role of emerging technologies, challenges, trends in financial services, and so on, then you are in the right place. We'll go all over it throughout the panel discussion and gives a lot of insights to you. There are lots more in store for this month as well as subsequent months with focus on banking, financial, insurance, telecom, retail, healthcare, supply chain, manufacturing, energy, utility, and so on. So request all of you to go through our website, which is aicorespot.io for future updates. Also, please like our social media handles, which will keep you all updated on everything what we propose to offer in the coming months to follow. Before starting with the day, I like to highlight few things so that it can set up the tone for the amazing learning and networking day. Special mention about our knowledge and innovation partner InfoVision, which is an end-to-end IT and business services provider specializing in providing technology transformation and innovation projects for over 25 years across multiple industries. They have over 3,000 technology professionals working across 12 global locations, including US, Latin America, Middle East, and India. They serve over 65 customers across banking, financial services, telecom, retail, media, consumer goods, healthcare, and the manufacturing industries. The core services which they offer includes digital engineering services comprising of cloud, big data analytics, DevOps, legacy modernization, application services, digital quality assurance, mobile API, microservices, social media research analysis, and cybersecurity. They also have an unique state-of-the-art research and innovation lab which they started last year named Digit7 in Richardson, Texas, with five great products which includes dgrab, Napcart, TagSquare, DigitShells, and FlyRobo. The beauty of all the five products is that they are customizable, cost-effective, and can be used in every industry where technology is needed. With their strong technology capabilities and delivery expertise, we are sure that they can help anyone in their transformation journey. Provide technology needs to build future-proof business model and excellence into one's and customer experience. So to get in touch with them, kindly log on to their website, which is infovision.com, and leave the details through the contact us section. Now coming on and moving to our community partners for today. It includes Bank of the West and TIAA, who came together to make this webinar a success. A special mention to attendees of the event who registered and came today to achieve their objectives through this forum. At the end of the day, if you gain few things out of this or get to network with each other, then our core objective as a platform will be achieved. Further, if anybody wants to ask questions, they can type it in the Q&A section, which is there at the right side of the menu option. You can type in as and when the panel member speaks, and we'll try to get it answered as per the time permitted. There's also a hand button at the bottom of the screen through which you can even raise the hand and come to the stage to ask questions to speakers as well. So now let's begin the day, guys. Let me hand over the stage to Brett, who is AVP at InfoVision, handling banking, financial, and insurance domains, and who is the moderator for this panel discussion as well. He's joined by Varun Agrawal, who is independent financial risk consultant. Then we have Giorgio, who is Chief Information Security Officer at Bank of the West. And then Tasneem is there, who is Managing Director at TIAA. So over to you, Brett, to begin this exciting panel discussion.
Very good. Thanks, Nitin. Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be joining us today. Thank you for spending an hour with us. And again, thank you for the panelists, Tasneem, Varun, and Giorgio, for joining us today, and looking forward to a great collaborative session. So why don't we get to it? Tasneem, let's maybe start with you. Want to just kind of get an idea from your perspective on how technology is evolving within the enterprise. What should leaders be thinking about when making decisions and building solutions versus buying solutions within the technology area?
Sure. Thank you, Brett. So I think this is a topic which I would say is evolving. Technology by far has come by far, and personally for me, I see that there is a change in how I actually make decisions when it comes to working through solutions. It makes a lot more sense to really buy technology where needed, especially if it doesn't add any value prop. It's not anything very unique to your organization. It makes sense to actually buy. So that would, anything related to operations, anything related to work, which is just common, and several other organizations would need the same kind of capabilities. It makes sense for TI not to kind of create their own custom solutions, and for us to buy and be comfortable with just integrating. What a board of thought to do that is to make sure that we do not open up our data that, directly to these third-party products, that we create abstractions such that if tomorrow the landscape changes and you have to switch from one solution to another, it doesn't create a whole lot of overhead. Yeah. But I'm all about now, first looking to see if there is something that you can buy and then build. It gives you a market edge also, that you can go to the market faster, and stay competent.
No, absolutely. It makes sense. It probably allows you guys too to focus on, the core stuff, where if you want to build something yourself, that's something that's specific or special to you, where you can't get that, from a third party or off the shelf. It allows you kind of to distribute resources accordingly, so you're not spending resources on stuff that you could buy versus build.
Yeah, and I think it's a culture where everyone in the organization really needs to become that. I would say that's still happening. I mean, yeah. I think I was a developer, and developers do tend to actually want to code. They want to build the minute
for sure.
They want to actually solve it. Just have to be careful as to where do you want to put your energy and time.
No, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up, because I do think a lot of times people feel like, hey, we've got to build this to show our value, right? And you're right. It does take a cultural shift depending on the organization to feel comfortable in certain situations, buying versus building, and kind of how does that strategy work, and then get everybody kind of on board to move forward with that strategy. No, that's great. Giorgio, Varun, anything to kind of add to that from your perspective, or what you guys are seeing within, Giorgio, maybe within your organization, or Varun, what you're seeing out in the marketplace in general?
Bern?
No, so I'll just add to that that technology is evolving faster than some people can understand. So the especially with developing AI ML techniques, a lot of times what is going on is the person or the group that's bringing in has the expertise, but it's not shared across the enterprise, and that is creating a knowledge gap within the company itself, and that needs to be closed. With education, with training, so the enterprise moves together, as opposed to someone who's in charge of AIML. He or she's taking the bank in one direction, while the rest of the enterprise still stays behind. And that is something, Georgia, I don't want to jump in your turf, that is totally your expertise. But this is what I've seen, in the company that I've worked for.
Yeah, so for banking, we can't go out there and just go to Egghead Software and buy something, right? Hey, here we go, we're done. There's requirements you have to go meet with the Federal Reserve Board, with the Federal Financial Institution Examination Council, with the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. So from a banking perspective, they want to know if you're building something that you've avoided the vulnerabilities, right? You got your vulnerability scans, you got your code scans. So before you deploy something, they want to make sure you follow the secure SDLC, and you need evidence to show that you have one, and also that it's enforceable. The reason this is important is in banking, we deal with a lot of money transfers. We also deal with a lot of situations where we have to know our customer. We have to be able to ensure that the folks putting the money in is who they say they are, and the people taking the money out are who they say they are. And when you can build and buy, and if you can buy, sometimes it's better because you have a staff that can support you, right? But if you're building something, you need to ensure that you have a proper application security team that looks at things like API security, API gateways. The pen testing is very important. So there's pen testing for infrastructure, there's pen testing for the applications before it goes out. Having a proper release plan. So if something does happen, what will you do and how will you deal with it? And these are things that you have to think about from a banking perspective. There's very little tolerance for these kind of situations where there's a vulnerability or even a zero-day vulnerability, right? So just making sure we've done the proper due diligence is very important in the space. So if I could buy something and somebody says they spend the money to do it, I'm probably going to lean towards buying, because I know how difficult it is to build something that actually does what it says, and make sure that your staff is still there after the person's moved on, that you have the documentation, everything else to make sure that it's there. So it depends on the operations at the location, but that's what I would be thinking about if I'm looking to buy or build technology.
Yeah, you bring up a key point too, right, with regards to building something, and how does that knowledge continue to transfer throughout the organization as people leave, right? What's documented, what's not.
Yeah.
I've historically seen that a lot of times, documentation maybe early on is good, but the ongoing documentation or the knowledge leaves the organization, and then now you're kind of stuck down the road.
Yeah. And I think the key there, really, with respect to the build and buy, and I was trying to talk about that earlier too, is anything operations, anything which does not really involve proprietary knowledge is where I would feel very, very comfortable, basically, right? But the minute it comes down to, hey, we need to know more about a particular space, then yes, you have to exercise caution there, because you do not want to lose the subject matter, for sure.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's great. Well, let's maybe shift a little bit in another direction on the compliance side, or some of the regulatory stuff when it comes to technology. Varun, maybe I'll go to you with regards to how are both banks and insurers complying with regulations as they increasingly adopt various technologies.
So my thought on that would be, the onus to demonstrate compliance stays with the organization. The regulators don't tell you how to be compliant; they tell you what to be compliant, and the onus really comes down to that. So with increasing adoption of technology, maybe I could give you some, that come to my mind. Now let's say Google is developing these AI ML models where they can, when you have let's say you have an auto policy, and you're an and there's an auto insurer, and there is an accident, you just take the picture of the accident of your car, of the other person's car, and just send it over, and the technology will process it and provide you with a claim in an hour. So it just processes that. Now that is creating, has that been really tested? There are a lot of insurers out there that want to get that buy that software from Google, which runs, by the way, in millions, but it also creates efficiencies, creates, a customer doesn't have to wait for weeks to get their payment, to get their claims. It's happening at times that it misfiles the claim. So in terms of the severity of the accident has really not been vetted in the prototype well, and it has been deployed in the insurance at the insurer side. So the insurer would pay the claim not knowing has it paid the accurate claim or not. So that's creating efficiencies, but it also may be creating a downside impact on the financial. Is it really overpaying? And you're not having somebody go there to examine the accident. Just a picture is enough, and that is creating some issues, in when the number of claims are coming up and the severity of the claim is actually going up. They're really questioning whether this technology is well deployed. I can give you another example. There was a company, without naming names, that said, it's a 1 day claims payment. So they floated a platform out there where it was you could file a claim, and within a day you would get a claim, you would get the payment. But there were a lot of caveats, there were a lot of footnotes, a lot of exceptions to what claims could be filed, who could file a claim, and that was not well floated with the customers. The customers thought, oh, it's a 1 day claim. Let me file a claim. I'll get the money back. And when the customer did not get the money back, they were very upset about it. And they said, this is a fraud company. It created a reputation risk for the bank, and eventually it created for the insurance company, and eventually it created a reputation risk, a financial risk for the insurer. And the state regulators came in and said, what are you doing? You promised 1 day claim. You're not making the claim. You're violating the terms of your agreement, and there was a financial downside to that. So the platform was great, but it came with a lot of caveats that were not well socialized with the customers. Now, in terms of so they may be increasing the efficiency, but they're also creating risk around that. For a banking institution, I mean, you want to now if you go to a fintech platform, within 4 minutes I bought my auto insurance, and within 4 minutes I could open an account with a new fintech bank. Now, what it's really doing is it's opening, and when I want to borrow the money, the fintech bank actually what it's doing is it's giving it's segmenting its customers, so only the good customers get the loan, and it is leaving the high risk or the bad customers out. In the process, what the fintech is doing is violating fair lending laws, where it says thou shall give a minimum number of percentage of loans to people in the underprivileged class, and you have to make sure your product is floated across, not just in the rich neighborhoods, it also goes to the poor neighborhoods, and that is creating a compliance issue for those institutions where they say, yeah, we really make it efficient, but they are creating a lot of, they're violating fair lending. That means there is a fine, there is a financial impact, and that is an impact on both on the reputation risk and on the financials. So that has to be, when you deploy these technologies, you have to be as an institution, you have to do your homework and be cognizant and run a pilot and make sure that all these I's are dotted and T's are crossed. It's not just creating a good credit, but it's also not creating. You're not substituting one risk for the other. You're reducing your credit risk, but you're increasing your compliance risk.
Yeah.
And in the way in the process you may be increasing your overall enterprise risk, and that may be a problem. So that is something institutions have to be. And institution has stumbled on it all the time. I mean, I can talk about cybersecurity. You're floating all these nice software for the customers. You're creating, and you hear about these news all the time, about cyber attacks, and that is a big headache once it comes through. The incidents are few, but when it comes in, it comes with $1 billion, or plus, a bill to the company, and that's something we have to be cognizant. When introduce efficiencies, are we really creating, compliance risk and financial risk in the process? That would be my thought on that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think, the takeaway from that is that technology works well, when you've vetted the process, right? And then you've leveraged the technology to make that process better, both internally and for the customer experience. A lot of times I think it's not a combination of technology operations and even compliance or oversight coming together and working on that and deploying that technology, but it's, a group in a silo working on it and deploying it. And then that's where you start to see some of those problems creep in.
Yeah, and I think I just want to add to that,
Correct.
right? That you definitely want to always explore emerging tech because you do not know what's going to work or not. But be okay to fail, really. You try it out, you see, and if it doesn't work, you just make corrections, or in some cases, completely even be okay with shutting down and just having, creating a brand and reputation of your own organization as one, which is experimenting. And then you take, clients to experiment with, and some experiments will succeed, some won't. And I think even this, I would say, is part of your culture, your DNA. Typically, organizations do not have the right attitude with respect to failure. Failure is considered negative, but if we are not failing, then we are not trying enough.
Yeah. That's a great point. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Tensi. Giorgio, anything to add to that?
No, I think that's a great summary. I think they pretty much hit it spot on there. So no, I agree with that.
Very good. Okay, well, we're sticking with that theme. Maybe Giorgio, let's go to you. What are some of the challenges today you guys are, seeing or doing to protect the bank?
Yeah, so this is always going to be ongoing. Like I mentioned earlier, right? We have to meet compliance requirements, bank examiners coming from FRB, FFIEC, and from the FDIC. That's always going to be there. So if I decide to go and change out my MSSP, or I change out how my use case in Splunk is running, I need to make sure my run books are updated. It references all that. So when bank examiners come, we can look at that. So that is an ongoing challenge. So I like the idea of bringing in and trying out some new emerging tech. But I'm a cost center, right? And as a cost center, I've got limited budget where I can go try new stuff out. So sometimes banking is not about being creative, but making sure you meet the compliance, making sure at the end of the day you're doing the right thing to protect the data. But meeting that is paramount. So when we try new things out, that's the first question we ask is, does this meet what we have to go do and provide evidence and artifacts going forward? With that being said, the second biggest thing right now for us is personnel shortages. And there's a lot of movement today among our personnel. And I think with the economy as it is and with inflation and everything, folks are, a little bit worried about, their home budget, how they're handling things. So our challenges as employees do move, make sure the proper documentation is there in case the next employee comes behind them, right? So I like to tell you that I can just go out there and just hire folks right off and be fully staffed. But at any one time, we're probably looking at some form of attrition that's taking place, either voluntary or involuntary, and we have to figure out how to go meet that. But more importantly, finding ways to scale out our people, their capabilities, our technology, our processes, make sure they're as lean and efficient as possible. So sometimes in banking, we get a little bit bureaucratic on some things. We got to make sure that it is as lean as possible, but the personnel is an issue going forward. So we are training folks. We are definitely trying to find talent where we can. But the big thing is, at the end of the day, is we do have to meet FRB guidance going forward. The other thing also is that, we talked earlier about the application security piece. If you buy or build something, that application security is very, very important. So, making sure, if somebody comes back and says, okay, we're going to deploy this out, and we have an application security team that actually will look and say, okay, have you done the proper threat model? Have you done the proper requirements gathering? Not just application requirements gathering, but security requirements gathering, right? At the end of the day, this is touching somebody's bank account, somebody's money, somebody's personal information. Are we confident that we've done everything reasonably we can to go do that? And that's where Secure SDLC comes in, making sure that if it's a internet-facing API, that it's well protected. We've taken reasonable steps, right? An API scanning tool. We have a very passionate development team that builds things, and they're very excited to get things updated. But making sure that from a security perspective, that we've done our due diligence. And I don't expect them to find everything wrong, but I'm hoping that we can do the reasonable things, right? The code scans, the final security review before it goes live, a pen test from an application pen test where if they're confident it's working, we can do a focused pen test to see that really is the case or not. But these are things that I worry about, and making sure that that we can handle this correctly to the best of our ability and to a reasonable standard in the industry. At the end of the day, it's about protecting our bank, protecting our customers. I also want to clarify something real quick. So thank you for the generous title of saying I'm the current CISO at Bank of the West. I was the CISO at DataStax. Where I'm right now, I'm the head of security operations reporting up to the CISO. So all the stuff we're talking about with security operations, incident response, threat intelligence, red team pen testing, making sure that web application firewall is working correctly. I'm looking at saying, okay, it's working today. Is it working tomorrow? Is it working now? Right. So these are things that I look at and saying, hoping that nothing gets turned off to go to troubleshooting, it doesn't get turned back on again. So I watch a lot of this going forward. Varun, if I've said something, left something out, please include it.
No, absolutely. So you talked about, doing the SDLC, and that's where I was saying, have your checks and balances identified before you actually float. This is what I say. Before you do that, make sure you have the checks and balances. And if it's impacting your customer account, any breach would really impact your reputation risk at the end of the day. So, you have to be really cognizant of that. So what you're mentioning, absolutely, I completely agree. And we have to follow that tiring but robust process, to protect us for the future.
And one of the things I'll look for in this Secure SDLC is it enforceable, right? So I've seen companies have policies in place, but if you're buying or building something, have you done the proper privacy and security impact before you go buy it, right? As security looked at this correctly. But from a internal Secure SDLC, are the proper guardrails in place? Or if somebody decides to go push code into production, is it invalidated in dev? Has the user acceptance sign off been done? Have you tested this before it goes live, right? Because you can't have production go down. So these are questions we ask and keep asking, not because we don't trust it, but we're trying to just verify it's correct before it goes forward. But the Secure SDLC is a great way to minimize a lot of the churn that we see in the application security space. Tashim, I don't know if I've left something out, ma'am, or.
No, I think you guys covered it. Basically, you guys went at length with respect to the process and what needs to really be done. Thank you.
Very good. Well, maybe let's stay there just for a second, and Varun, come back to you on a little bit more around just the regulatory piece, and is technology. Is there any new technology specific regulations, either something that you're seeing or something that people are talking about that we may see come down the road? Let's maybe spend a few minutes in that area.
So any institution we run, we have to be really, the regulators are on our backs. We know that. So all the time. So regulators are sometimes a step behind, but what they do is they regulate so many institutions that they guess the best practices from the best ones, and that becomes the standard, for their regulation when they float out. Now the old regulations, how do you really do business? How do you assess risk? How do you, look at different processes? That is not changing fast, but regulators are catching up on that quickly, I must say. On that, especially, I'll talk a little bit about on the insurance side. You see a lot of states in the U.S. So the insurance industry is the insurance regulation is very fragmented. Every insurer is regulated by the state where it's doing business. So the individual states are now taking the onus of creating regulations that are directly impacting on how technology is deployed. And it, again, the onus comes on the institution to demonstrate that with the deployment of new technology and whatever they're doing, they're not violating the existing laws. In my previous conversation, I'd mentioned fair lending laws for banks, or and the claims payment. You're doing the right thing, and making sure everybody is covered. And so they are actually saying you're deploying technology, but how are you demonstrating that you are complying with the older regulations? And that has become a cost of compliance, for the institutions in that front. That would be my take on that.
Are you finding that that it's taking some education as regulators come in on some of these new technologies to say, hey, here's what we're doing, here's how it's different? But to your point, we're applying the existing regulations to that.
Yeah, right. And so one is to demonstrate compliance with the old regulation. Now they're also coming up, especially I'll tell you, and I'm a risk manager, so I'm coming from a risk management standpoint. There are a lot of AI ML techniques being deployed in risk management to create efficiencies, again, as I mentioned. But in the process, are you and so one is the regulation that this is my mother regulation for risk and compliance. This is actually my added regulation that actually FRB is coming up, one for model risk management. I know sometime later next year, to say that, hey, this is how you develop models, but with the deployment of new techniques, how are you demonstrating that the development of models is still the right thing to do? And so the regulators are one, they're catching up. They're not yet there, but they are very much coming up. New regulations are coming up. We've seen that in the insurance sector. We will see that in the banking sector coming up as well.
Yeah. Are they given some leeway as they're coming up to speed, since it's new to them as well?
Yeah, they always do. So there's always a notice of proposed rule making. When a new regulation comes in, there is feedback from the industry. They're giving a few months depending on the severity of the regulation coming in. But the proactive institutions do it well before the regulation comes in. They're prepared.
Yeah.
But the ones there are some laggards, and maybe by choice they are laggards because the cost of implementation is too high for them. So they just wait and see what other institutions are doing, what their higher peers are doing before they adopt, the compliance with the regulation. And that's absolutely accepted practice, because the cost of compliance is sometimes outweighs, the benefits of deploying a technology on that.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for that. Tasneem, Giorgio, anything to add to that? Anything you guys are seeing or want to elaborate on? No? Okay. Go ahead, Kansi.
Yeah, the regulatory as well as the compliance environment is a constant, has an impact on TIAA and the work that we do. And it's something that we almost struggle with respect to capacity management. It's striking the right balance between our focus on strategic initiatives versus if something shows up which is really not planned for. So yes, and the retirement industry is absolutely impacted by this because, and we're waiting on a pretty big Act, Secure Act 2.0 to get approved. And the implications for our industry, our space, retirement and annuities is going to be huge from it.
Thank you, Tasneem, for bringing that up. Absolutely. It's not just your institution. It's every institution on the block that is, you spoke for the industry, actually, that is facing these issues. It's something on your back you can never get rid of. It's like you can never get rid of paying taxes. You can never get rid of, be compliant with regulators. Yeah. Completely agree.
Yeah. What about, so with some of the regulatory stuff, what's the view on interpretation, right? I think sometimes different organizations or even different people within organizations interpret regulations differently. How do you guys handle that or see that play out?
My opinion, absolutely, interpreting regulation is more an art than a science. So that is sometimes a hit or a miss, and there is no formula. But what happens is the first year the regulation comes out, it gets better with knowledge sharing in the industry and with experience of the institution. So the first year the institution may have a lot of amiss, and they may just get a slap on the back, no big penalties, no big fines. But if the same trend continues in institution has not learned, it comes
Yeah,
in the third or the fourth year, the regulators get really upset, and then there's a big fine on the institution. So they do give time for institutions to adapt, to ask questions. But if they don't see improvement or progress, then they are actually really imposed on the fine. And that goes a lot with technology as well, with implementation of technology.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, at TIA, we do have like a pretty extensive, team that actually works very, very closely with folks in Washington, D.C. to interpret what it means. And in fact, like TIA plays pretty significant role in influencing sometimes the decisions as well. So yeah, and I happened to recently meet the team that is that works on this aspect while being a part of a leadership session. It's pretty significant, and goes to really the core of what TIA is stood up on.
absolutely. Yeah, it's key being part of that, right? And understanding and even kind of shaping some of that. Very good. Let's maybe, if there's nothing else there on the regulatory side, let's maybe shift gears a little bit to kind of developments and what you're watching. Giorgio, maybe I'll go to you. And what technology developments are you kind of watching closely or excited about?
So, in full disclosure, I'm not just working in the banking industry. I'm also a lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserve working for Army Cyber Operations. And there's been a lot of good development in terms of quantum computing. Now, I love what they're doing with it. I think IBM's coming out with like a 1 million qubit computer, I think sometime in 2030. And the ability to do rapid computing and rapid computations is incredible. However, my concern is that with the advent of quantum computing and the leaps in development we've done, we're probably going to see more and more what they call store now, decrypt later attacks, right? Where they steal the data now, they store it, and they can use quantum computing to be able to decrypt that data later on. Now, this is getting to be more and more real. And as it happens, I'm watching to see what can we do with this. Now, the good news is, and I didn't answer this question early from a regulation standpoint, but the White House actually issued a couple of national security memoranda, number 8 and number 10, to basically accelerate our readiness against quantum computing-based attacks. And Congress has actually also pushed out a bill that is not approved yet. I think they're working on pushing it through both branches of Congress, but it's House Bill 7535 on Quantum Computing Cybersecurity Preparedness Act. And the intent is to get our classified data protected, right? So making sure that we don't have any data that can be stolen and then decrypted later on, national secrets, encryption keys, things like that, making sure that we're doing the right things going forward. Now, what the federal government does, with the push down, will eventually work its way into banking regulations. So I'm watching very close to see how that's going to impact us going forward. But it's something to keep an eye on and understand the progress being made. It's incredible to see where we've come so far. But as I look at it, I see new threat, right? So today I'm like, hey, you can't break our encryption, but with quantum computing, it's probably going to become obsolete. So you'll probably need encryption in the future that's resistant to quantum computing. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Nicely.
No, absolutely. Varun, Tasneem, anything to add to that or? things you guys are watching closely?
Talked about Secure Act. We're watching Secure Act very closely.
Yeah. And Giorgio, little bit discussion on the data side, the data privacy piece, the GDPR, of course, is in the in EU, and then the California law, CCP, I think that's the law. Um uh, that is creating, I mean, that's creating added cost. I don't know what would be the benefits, just for discussion's sake, for our audiences, that is is that a good regulation or a bad regulation? That's been questioned. I mean, we know in China there exists nothing like this,
Right.
and everybody's information is government information, on that front. So, I mean, what are the secure? How do you secure that information within your realm? I don't know how challenging you face. You're just floating the topic out.
So, when I was younger, I always focused on if you have nothing to hide, you don't worry about privacy, right? As I've gotten older, I realized, no, I want my privacy. And I think every consumer, every person that does banking deserves a right to the privacy of their information, right? Your information you give from making a bank loan, the information you give and that's kept in your accounts. So if you are a legitimate user of banking, you should have every expectation to privacy. And I think one of the things we're trying to go do is make sure that we meet that expectation, right? So we do a lot of work using machine learning, for example, in the space of validating, it's called Know Your Customer, KYC efforts in banking.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody comes in and says, hey, I'm George Polakathara and I want to see my last loan data, they should be able to come back and validate, okay, George, validate who you are, right? And there's in the past, it was give me your birth date, give me your social security number, and okay, let me look you up, here you go. Now it's gotten more complex, and without saying more about it, we're using machine learning in quite a few different ways to be able to validate that this is correct, right? There's actually patterns of known patterns, potential patterns for fraud you can identify and saying, no, this doesn't look right, right? Where they can quickly notify me and saying, hey, are you trying to look at your bank data right now? I'm like, no, I'm talking to my kids. What are you talking about, right? So that privacy is something that we should take reasonable steps to protect. And I think there's quite a bit of effort in the banking space using machine learning to go do that. And especially for the shortage of personnel, right? So we're trying to use that not just in fraud detection, but also customer interactions, right? Trying to better answer somebody's question, trying to make sure that they can check on the information in their bank. They say who they are, they can get in and they can get back out. So, but in terms of privacy, I think we need to make sure that we are doing everything reasonable, right, within the industry to make sure that we are protecting their data, right? This is where multi-factor authentication comes in, making sure that their information stays private, right? Only to the people that they've authorized to be able to access it, and that's it. So we do quite a bit in the consumer space. We do quite a bit in terms of GLB to make sure that that information stays where it should and nowhere else, right? Also within our bank in terms of who gets to access that, right? So if you don't have a right to go look at it, you shouldn't. And that's part of the thing we do working with the financial crimes unit, making sure that the expectation of privacy is met. Now it varies. Bank of the West is a regional bank. We're U.S. based, but I would like to see us actually adopt a more extensive idea what personal data is. And ours is truncated compared to what they use for GDPR or what they use in Canada. And I think understanding these various aspects of personal data and making sure that we don't store that and we're taking reasonable steps to protect what we have to have, I think is very, very reasonable. And I think we need to work towards that, especially in banking. If you want to be trusted by your customers, you have to take those steps. And we're doing some of that today, but there's always room for improvement.
Absolutely. Always staying at the forefront, right? And not being complacent. What personnel's come up a couple of times. Maybe just touch, and this is a little bit off script, but personnel, are you finding that the personnel just aren't out there, or there's personnel out there, but they just don't have the skill set that you're looking for? Or is it a combination of the two?
So, Varun, Seema, if you guys,
I'm opening that up to the group. I know that's come up a couple of times, so just curious on people's on people's experience or what they've seen.
So we're certainly getting the entry level talent coming in. We're getting that. The challenge for us is the mid to senior level talent for some reason just isn't there. So this problem is going to compound with the rise of inflation over the last year and a half, right? So salaries have to keep pace with the cost of living. We have a very structured approach to how we hire folks and making sure the salary is competitive. And today we're finding that checking it annually to make sure salary is competitive is probably not enough. You need to probably look at it a little bit more closely because banks have a shortage right now of necessary security talent to make sure that the right things are happening. And we have very intensive security operations to make sure all of the things we talk about are actually being done, right? That's actually where my bread and butter. So one thing we're trying to do is provide training to the folks who are at the junior level so they can get ready for the next level. But more importantly, when we start talking about the things we do to protect it, the personnel aspect is very, very important, right? So I view security in terms of people, process, and tech. So is it lean, efficient process? Are the people trained up? We do extensive background checks on folks and such. So, working for a bank means expect a background check, expect fingerprinting, expect all that to make sure you are who you say you are. And finally, the technology, right? It's not just, as I mentioned earlier, going to Egghead and buying my copy of Office or Windows, whatever, and I'm done. It's literally make sure it's deployed correctly. If you're in the cloud provider will definitely protect you at the fundamental level, but from an application standpoint, the configuration within your tenant, all that has to be done correctly. And that's where the personnel comes in, right? Having the folks have the skill set to go do that and retaining them. It's not just recruiting them, it's the retention aspect, right? So if you don't retain them, another bank's going to say, hey, come work for us. And, you lose your MVP. What do you do then?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be surprised if there is any industry that's not impacted by what's happening out there with respect to
That's a great point.
the Great Resignation. It's pretty much everywhere. Even the most stable, jobs or universities. I was at a conference with some of our clients, and our clients are facing this. And our clients are usually universities, so they are losing their employees also. So I think it's pretty much everywhere. And I agree, this whole keeping up with the salary or the compensation that's going in the market, it's a struggle. We feel, it's an ongoing thing. It's something that we'll have to watch for in an ongoing basis. And but at the same time, I also feel like, providing an environment which is beyond just comp is even more important, because compensation is really all about, I call it like a health kind of a benefit, but it's not a motivation.
That's right.
The kind of work that you are doing
That's right.
is really important. How people are, how you're making them feel is really important. So I think all that goes in hand as well.
That's a great point to bring up. And folks think about coming into security because they think, it's a good paying job. So I got some great advice when I was younger. I've been in this industry about 32 years. And if you look at doctors and lawyers, they don't just, get the job and they're done. They spend continuous education hours to make sure they're properly trained up. And if you're working in IT and security, we're professionals. We have to spend the time to understand, how did that attack happen? What is the postmortem on that breach? How did the attackers get in? Understanding that, right? So they have certifications in our industry that I maintain. I have quite a few of them. And I spent 30 hours for each one of the certifications to stay updated and maintain. I go to conferences. I attend local chapter meetings to figure out what's happening. But I think we have to make sure that as a profession, we are staying updated on the latest and greatest. I don't pretend to be the expert in everything, but there's some things I'm very good at. And I try to also present on that to others to make sure they understand that. But we need to start looking at our profession from a standpoint of do we know what's currently going on? How do we dig deeper into this? There's a lot of talk about today, like we need to be able to bring in to cover the shortage. Let's just bring folks in 1 year experience and go do that. I'm not opposed to that, but understand that that's probably good coming into the junior levels. Would you go to a surgeon who just finished their undergrad degree? They haven't got to medical school yet, but you really need the surgery and there's a shortage of doctors. Would you go to the doctor and say, hey, go and open me up and do the surgery? Now, you're probably going to want somebody who's probably done maybe 5,000 hours or 10,000 hours of surgery, right? 10,000 hours is 5 years experience. And I think we need to still find ways to go accelerate that, but we need to make sure people have the experience necessary to go deal with real life situations. And I think that's a challenge we need to go face. And I'm a big proponent of, you're going to come into information security, or what they call cybersecurity today, or defensive cybersecurity, that you should have a few years in IT to understand the basics, right? The fundamentals of the OSI model, or how the various attacks take place, understanding how data is being transmitted, how it's being protected across various systems, right? These are basic fundamentals that we should be educating in schools, educating among our fellow employees, so they're ready for this, because the attacks are getting more and more complex. They're not getting simpler or staying static. The attackers are actually they realize there's money in it, right? Nobody breaks into a bank from the front door. They go through the firewall. So we need to understand what they're doing. They're shopping for 0-day vulnerabilities on the dark web, looking to see what they can find and break into us. Why? Because we keep money. Because we have efforts to be able to prevent criminals from trying to store the money in legitimate banking. So we need to make sure that we're protecting that carefully, protect the banking system all up.
Absolutely. No, that's great. Great conversation. Appreciate the back and forth on that. It's great. Maybe let's shift a little bit more towards trends and what things we're seeing out there. Tasneem, if I can come to you, what are some of the top trends you're seeing or watching for, and you think will further transform the financial industry?
Yeah. So in the current environment where we talked about the whole economic situation, we have inflation, and even the social environment with a lot of focus on ESG. Companies are going to will have to look at new ways of gaining efficiency, right? Because cost is becoming very important. We just talked about the cost of the just employees really is going high, and we'll have to come up with different ways to actually different business models altogether, which we have not necessarily done until now, including TIAs at the moment exploring options where instead of really staff augmentation, we're getting into bringing in pods, where with the amount of staff resources that we're losing, our core personnel are spending a lot of time interviewing, and we want to eliminate that because we do not have and just kind of like having that be handled by someone for us, where we are still accountable for the delivery and for the subject matter expertise as well as architecture. But we do not want to really now be in the business of constantly interviewing these independent consultants, because it's not worth it. Like, for FTEs, that effort is worth it, but not. So we are just getting into all, different models when it comes to operations now, taking operations and further trying to get additional efficiency extracted from it by leveraging platforms that are out there. A lot of focus on low code, no code also, like where you can avoid actually writing your own UI as well as workflow related applications. We need to do that, and actually, so TI has been working with platforms like Uncork and others to just get quick wins and go to market really faster. And in addition, like I just briefly talked about ESG, the organizations will also have to think about sustainable technology. Really, that's going to be a thing of the future. Metaverse, we'll have to see how that is going to evolve. And in the mobile space, I handle mobile development. The whole concept of super apps is something that we'll have to watch for also, as to how different organizations can support multiple lines of business. This was an ongoing thing for us, where we have a bank, retirement, IRA, and other products that we offer. And the limitations that we had with mobile, where we had to kind of keep it all together. There's a dimension there that is going to change. There's focus on TI is focused big time now on customer journeys, end-to-end customer experiences via the on all connected channels, hyper personalization. So yeah, there's a lot that's going on.
There's a
lot that we are actually kind of like still exploring and learning from.
No, absolutely.
If I can, Brett, give a business spin to that, if you don't mind, a
Absolutely.
couple
Go
of
ahead,
minutes
Varun.
to that.
Yeah,
And there is a question
absolutely.
there I'm reading. I'm not giving the technology spin to the name, but more on the business side. There is a question there on that. What are some of the technology ways to customer acquisition and retention? So, without naming technology, I'll say the more profitable institutions versus are not the ones that have the data on their customers, and it's both the breadth and the depth of the data. Depth means granular level, where I know without violating privacy law, Giorgio, I won't step on your turf, but without violating any of the privacy laws, as much data as you can collect on a customer, on the customer behavior. If you have a mortgage product, really understand what is the customer at the loan level, not at a community level, not at a neighborhood level, but really at the customer level, and then be able to segment the customers, based on their past behavior, and of course, what you foresee in the future. That is the key to having acquisition and retention, because you are able to offer better pricing than your competitors. You're able to offer a differentiated pricing on your products to customers, and you can do all of that by data and then processing the data, which comes in with your data manipulation techniques, which which I must say does go with your AI ML techniques. And there is a bunch of software out there, that claim to process the data, but I would say most of them just do a job 50% best at done. You still have to have that ownership of the data and what you process and the techniques that you bring in to process the data. And if you have that, you're really ahead of your peers and in your profitability. That would be my mark, on the keeping up with technology, aspect of it from a business standpoint.
Yeah. If I can add something there real quick. So, in terms of privacy, right? I mean, I think marketers definitely want, and I've done product management at Microsoft for a few years, but my point being is that marketers definitely want to understand the customer better and provide better products and better service. And you can certainly do that, but there's steps you can take to make sure that you can still protect your customers' PI data, right? So when they're looking at demographics, they don't need to have first name, last name. They don't need to have their phone number or their email address, but they can look at it. Okay, we need to understand how many people are in this age category, because as you move through age categories in life, your needs and your wants change, right? When you're probably under 20, when you're probably trying to figure out how to get a college loan, when you get from 21 to or older, you're like, I want to buy a car, maybe I want to buy a house, maybe I want to invest in another degree, right? When you get a little bit older, you're thinking, how do I put my kids through college? And your needs change. So understanding that is perfectly okay, but this is where I would encourage the industry to look and make sure that proper steps been taken to protect that privacy of your customers, right? So if your marketers want to be able to do the demographics analysis, by all means, but they don't need to know somebody's home number or their work number, or looking and saying, well, this person has had 5 loans. Oh, and this is their first name, last name. It can be, well, this person, age 54, living in Minnesota, has had 5 loans. Okay, great. That's data they can probably look at, but you want to make sure that you've taken steps to protect the privacy. And I think that's where I would encourage that, right? But I think that needs to be something that as an industry we got to get better at.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very good. Varun, maybe let's come back to you. Are you seeing a slowdown in any adoption of certain technologies?
Oh, no, absolutely. On the contrary, it's accelerating. You open up LinkedIn and look for jobs. Everyone is looking for some tech skill or data skill or the other. And if you're a traditionalist, sorry for those folks, but if you're not adopted on the current, skill set, taking courses and all that, that would be my pain. You're really not keeping up with your skill set. So, and from a personnel standpoint, but absolutely in institutions, JP Morgan calls it itself now not a bank, but actually a technology company. That's the CEO's, the statement coming from the CEO himself. So if anything, technology is being increasingly adopted. The laggards, and we see a lot of insurance companies and banks, the big ones that we know, they are losing business to these more, less regulated and more, faster fintechs, in terms of, buying insurance, auto insurance, you know, uh, opening up a checking account. They're giving better savings rates than the big banking behemoths because they're able to process information faster. As I mentioned earlier, they have better data modeling techniques, and they are more lean and efficient platforms, I would say, than your brick and mortar. And they have to catch up if they have not. That would be my spin on that.
Okay, very good. Giorgio, Tasneem, anything to add to that?
No, I think that's
I think I'm. I
I'm
think
sorry.
I'm
Go ahead,
good.
please.
No, I said I'm good. Go ahead and
Okay. No,
yeah.
nothing to add. I think it's a good summary.
Okay, very good. Maybe Tasneem, let's kind of, as we kind of wrap things up here, what are some of the examples of some of the transformational work you guys are doing or have done, and how is technology shaping some of that work?
Yeah, I mean, I think I probably didn't talk about how TIA is leveraging machine learning, AI, and so in our focus to kind of like get everything to be straight through processing, there are some transactions, especially in our retirement industry, which are pretty complicated. It's not very easy for anyone to kind of like roll over their money from another retirement plan. There's a lot of paper process, a lot of back and forth that goes in these kind of transactions, and we are trying to transform this space and trying to leverage computer vision based products basically to just enable how we scan the paper, how we actually read the paper that comes in, and to bring it back into the funnel where the process itself is still fully digitized. So yep, and again, this in this space also we are being smart about, do we build this technology, do we create it, or do we actually buy it, and what makes the most sense really to do so. And I think earlier I talked about our focus on in general customer journeys, and I see that we are in a huge transformation stage where TI has actually gone through a huge change. We have net new leaders, right from our CEO, CIO to pretty much everyone in our C-suite is new, and along with that really comes a net new energy. Our culture, I can say, is transforming also, and that has just impacts the kind of decisions we are making. Our decisions are very much about making our customer. It's all about the customer, and delighting our customer with a focus on just making our clients have lifetime income through their retirement. Yep. So
very good. Yeah, thank you for that insight. Giorgio, anything you guys are doing at Bank of the West maybe to add to that?
Yeah, so we're actually using quite a bit of machine learning, and there are quite a few security vendors providing this into their technology going forward. So, for example, we have a managed security service provider called Deepwatch. Their use cases are fine-tuned with machine learning, right? Looking for patterns of malicious activity. We have a security operations team. We have use cases. They have use cases. But the intent is that what else can we take a look at? So, to me, machine learning is waiting to extend the capabilities of our personnel using technology, right? So, Deepwatch provides machine learning. We have an endpoint vendor named CrowdStrike that provides CrowdStrike Falcon. And they use machine learning to basically look at the endpoints and looking for known and potential patterns of activity based on previous data. I think these are all good things to go do. I talked about know your customer KYC efforts, right? So Pindrop provides quite a bit of fraud detection capabilities for us to be able to look at, folks trying to open up bank accounts. There's actually activity out there where they're trying to open up bank accounts as fast as they can using a script or trying to be able to hit your site and say, I want to open up 50 different accounts, right? Looking at money laundering schemes and trying to figure out, hey, is this real? Is it a real customer or what's going on here, right? And then, customers want to talk to us. They want to ask questions, and they don't want to go through press 1 for this, press 2 for this. They want to be able to ask a question, voice-based, and be able to get an answer back. And we're trying to automate as much of that possible and make it effective, right? So we understand that they're probably going to listen to it and go, oh, this is probably a computer voice. That's okay, but is their question being answered in an efficient manner, right? So machine learning can help us in quite a few ways. And like I said, the intent is not to replace people, but extend the capability out. So if somebody says, I've got a question and our automation answer the question, they have a follow-up question, but they want to talk to a person, absolutely, right? But machine learning of today is slowly making its way into banking. We're not I would say, the cutting edge of everything, but where it makes sense, like in our security operations, in our customer care operations, in our fraud operations, we're leveraging what we can.
Very good. Okay, thank you for that. It looks like we've got a couple of questions in the Q&A section, and then we touched on customer and customer journey. It looks like the first one, and I'll open this up to the group, is what are some of the technology ways that you're looking at or seeing or using to acquire customers or retain customers? Anyone want to kind of take a first crack at that one or have some thoughts there?
I do. So I just spoke about from a automation standpoint, right? Spring machine learning, ML. Nobody wants to be on call a customer line and wait an hour. Actually, today I think everybody want to make a call and they want to ask a question, right? And we're finding automation technology to be able to answer questions. We know that from when folks call in, these are questions they're going to ask. So making sure we have a proper answer, making sure that it's in place helps a lot there. But trying to automate and expedite customer care questions, making sure they get the answer they want, right? And you're seeing some of this today with the text banking where you're asking for your balance, you're asking for, hey, I want to make a quick transfer, right? Maybe you don't have your laptop in front of you, you want to connect that way, but machine learning is helping to make sure we provide a better customer experience, but more importantly, a secure customer experience for them so that they know that their data and their money is safe.
Yeah. And I touched base on the importance of data on that, Brett, earlier, you have to have good data, to stay ahead of the competition.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, and I concur on the comments with respect to how just making sure that your customers are having a delightful experience really, and staying on top of it with AI ops, knowing when your customer is potentially going to have an issue and addressing it before. Or versus just reacting to an issue that has actually happened, and when the issue happens, how you actually service it also. That's a huge focus, and in general, just reinventing, transforming, and looking at the moving away from transactions that a customer is having with us to truly taking in the journey aspect. I've heard organizations say journey, but a journey is really much bigger than a particular transaction. A journey is right from the start of, somebody just wanting to, explore all the way to, performing that particular transaction, and then what happens after that from a, feedback or, ongoing communication as well as engagement perspective. TI at the moment is exactly in that phase where we are now stepping up on how we look at our customer journeys and going deeper into it, having better focus, and our goal is to truly delight our customer. And I think when you have customers that are satisfied, that directly automatically helps with retention for sure. Right. And then when it comes to attraction, I think attraction also, I feel like, service actually helps with acquiring new customers also.
Absolutely. Yeah, making it less feel like a transaction versus more of a, to your point, journey, or just an opportunity to work with each other and get whatever they're trying to get done accomplished, and making them feel good about that, and that you've got their best interests at the forefront of that.
Well
Very
said,
good.
Brett. I was going to just add to that real quick. I think a satisfied customer is a customer who trusts their bank, right? So technology to me should do all the things we told our customers we would do: protecting their data, protecting their money, making sure that the right things are happening. And if you want to keep your customers satisfied, you need to make sure that they trust what we're doing for them. And it's not just trust because I say trust me. It's trust because we're exhibiting trusted behavior, right? This is where the technology piece comes in. This is where machine learning comes in, because we know we only have so many people to go do certain things. But this is where we can scale our operation using, again, people, process, tech, right? Technology that we know is trusted, technology we know that is proven that they can do certain things, handling their data in the securest manner possible, right? At some point, quantum is going to come in. Are we prepared for that? Probably not right now, but we're going to be when these starts, and it's slowly becoming more and more real a threat, right? But looking at that and understanding what the threat landscape is and what we can do to protect it, and that our customers know that we're taking reasonable effort to protect their data and protect them from that, right? That's where the trust comes in. So I tell folks, yeah, what we do is not flashy. It's not really sexy in any kind of way, but it's a very necessary thing we have to go do, and it's very important we do it correctly and we do it to the best of our ability.
Absolutely. Great. And I think we're coming close up to time. It looks like there's maybe a couple more questions in the Q&A section. Maybe we'll take one more of those. Nitin, do we have time for that? Or are we running up on time, or should we
have time.
kind of wrap up and let
We have time.
We have time? Okay. Maybe we touched on the talent shortage and some of the attrition stuff. Maybe let's spend a minute just talking about, with that being the case, and until some of that changes or shifts, what's the thought process around robotic automation, leveraging some of those tools and technologies around automating non-judgment based processes, and then also what is some of the risk that comes along with those technologies and those tools and deploying that approach. I'll
Yeah.
open that up to the group.
Yeah, I think, robotics is here. It's been here for quite some time, actually. And I don't know if it has anything to do even with the shortage of staff. I think it's anything that can be automated, anything that is repeatable and does not require your cognitive intelligence should actually be automated. And you just
Absolutely.
use the human. So I think
Amen to
the
that.
spirit for yeah, the spirit with which TI has been approaching is exactly that. Like, well, eliminate the human and then repurpose the human for tasks that require that cognitive intelligence. So I would call it more repurposing, and that leads to more satisfied humans also, like our workforce, because they're not necessarily doing the same thing, throughout their day. So yeah, TI has been big on robotics, and we use robotics especially in areas where there are some gaps when it comes to strategic solutions. If there are some delays or lags, and so we're trying to address them in the short term using robotics.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, that's great.
No, I second.
Giorgio, Varun, anything to add to that?
No, I second that. I mentioned, earlier, it is the RPA processes are getting more and more embedded. Something you don't need a credit analyst to look at a credit report. Now you just put it through the system, and now when you apply for a credit card, you get the answer in a minute, a couple of minutes. Yes or no, and those are all what RPA processes in our technology that is being deployed. With the algorithm behind it, it's not foolproof, but pretty much out there. And banks go by that. So the judgment piece is really out, and the trick again is making sure that it works in every situation and not in some. So you're not the bank is not caught off guard at the end. I spoke enough about that, so that's still my view.
Yeah. So with all the machine learning we use quite a bit of weekly fine-tuning meetings, making sure that the machine learning meets our operating environment, right? The intent is that it'll definitely come up and identify situations where a use case is being fired in Splunk or is being fired in another situation, making sure that we're minimizing the false positives, making sure that false negative doesn't happen, right? So making sure that this meets our operating environment. And even though most banks have a very similar operating environment, the things that we do just a little bit differently. So that weekly fine tuning is how we actually make better use of it. But no, I think Tasim's point is very spot on. It's been around for quite a while, and I think it's being leveraged. But it's that continuous fine tuning to make sure it is operating as it should be, and that's where people come in.
Absolutely, very good. Well, great. I know we're coming up on time. Any last minute comments, things you guys want to wrap up with?
I think thank you for the opportunity. It was good taking some time to chat here.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Giorgio. Thank you, Varun. Thank you, Tasneem. And thank you, Brett, for having a great panel discussion for an hour. I know the time is obviously, always a constraint when you are discussing something which is interesting, but that's the beauty of webinars. You have to give the shortest possible time. So I'd like to wrap up the conversation. So first of all, we would like to thank all our community partners, speakers, and attendees who came together for enriching knowledge through this forum. And we had great set of panel speakers like you all who came together to share thoughts. Just for your information, today's event was broadcasted in the YouTube and Facebook page of our company. So you all can go and see the recording anytime. Please log on to our website and like the social media channels. We'll be sharing lots of knowledge sharing topics, details, announcement of next events, and much more, which will help you register and attend the same. Also, we would like to thank InfoVision, which is our knowledge and innovation partner, and Digit7, which is our technology partner. Digit7 also have a great innovation lab of 15,000 square feet in Richardson, Texas. Any one of you who are dropping by can always go to the office and have a look to feel that. To understand more in depth, connect with them, and to suggest any aspect, all of you can go through their website, which is infovision.com and digit7.io, and closely liaison with them. Further, there are lots more in store for this month and subsequent months as well, with focus on all the emerging industries, which is banking, financial, insurance, telecom, retail, healthcare, supply chain, manufacturing, energy, utility, and so on. So request all of you to keep connected with us and enjoy the learning. Thanks, and do take good care of yourself. Have a lovely day and great weekend ahead. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.